Team-based learning is a methodology that allows us to get the students to work together in small groups to try and further their own understanding of a topic. And so it's a bit of a structured approach which sees the teacher's role becoming very much one of a facilitator, and it involves the students taking a real lead and custodianship of their own learning, which I find quite exciting.
They get to apply knowledge learnt previously in the preparation materials. So they can be readings, they can be videos, they can be online lectures. They come to class and they take an individual quiz. (10 to 15 questions usually is the sweet spot. Then, once they've completed that, they undertake the exact same quiz, the same questions, but they have opportunity to talk to each other, talk to their teammates, debate and kind of collaborate on what the correct answer is, and they then, as a team, have to elect a single response.
You know, you're sitting in silence and everyone is busily completing their readiness assurance test, and then we open up to team discussion and there's this deafening roar of student voice where everyone's debating, you know, did you get the answer to that? And I'd love when you'd look up into the room and you'd see, you know, the team that had finally got that question right. Yay, you know, we got it.
You can see them come alive, and there's that natural instinct to kind of, when you come out of a quiz, to say, oh, I really struggled with this, what do you think? So that really gets students engaged.
I found doing tasks individually and then doing it within a team really made a big difference, because I could see other perspectives and kind of how other people thought.
It's really powerful to have students have to identify what they got wrong themselves, as well as then contributing to the discussion and say that, I know this is the right answer because. Often you'll see teams who are full of students who aren't necessarily the top performers in the IRAP be the best in the TRAP because they work effectively.
I found it really interesting and at times probably a little bit challenging working with my peers. The way in which we approach things are a little bit different. However, it's not necessarily bad. I think they offered an insight or a perspective that I may have forgotten or not had. It made a difference in a positive way.
A major benefit is that students are actually really doing the teaching. The role of the teacher is radically different in TBL. We are still shaping the learning activity, and that design work of the question is so important, and setting the right questions and being prepared to keep the discussion moving in the right direction is still very much what we're doing as the teacher and facilitator there. But most of the class time is spent with the student leading the discussion. It's the student voice that's getting heard, not the teacher's voice.
They can be confident if they know they got something right, they can contribute to the discussion and tell their peers how they know it's right in their own words, which I think is key. When you have an academic explain it, often they're coming from a place where they have an understanding of the content so well that they don't speak the same language of the students.
When you're learning from your peers, you're working generally from the same level, as opposed to an academic who might not know necessarily where you're at. So your ability to explain things to each other generally tends to be easy to understand compared to when a lecturer might be explaining something and might go over your head, or it might be too simplistic.
In some cases, the students will get up and they will just answer the questions beautifully. They will clarify for the room and nothing more needs to be said. And I think that could be quite confronting as an educator that's used to doing a lot of talking in the room.
Application activities follow on from the clarification session after the IRAT and TRATs are completed. It's essentially a complex task that draws upon everything that students have been discussing. It's where all the pre-readings, the questions within the RATs come together.
We tend to have fairly structured activities that they do in their group, the end result of which being a written group output, and then at the end of the seminar they'll report back to the class as a whole.
Focused application activity can foster discussions and debates where they have to back up their thinking, formulate arguments and reasoning as to why they chose their option.
We had a focus application task and they were put into different groups that they already had established, and they had an affirmative team and an opposing team. I think the debate was really good because it allowed the students to interact collaboratively. People are coming at different levels and they bring to the equation different things, and I think that's the key thing about learning from each other.
Having them work in small groups, I think puts a lot of peer pressure on them to contribute.
It was really good because I could step back and allow the students to do the activity themselves and to shine their own abilities. If they had one team member who had already done the prior learning, that person stepped up in their role and guided the rest of the team.
A lot of the other units that we do are independent study, so it's more about how I direct my own learning. With the TBL approach, it's kind of how can I contribute, but how can I learn from my peers at the same time whilst we're learning all this new curriculum.
Some students who traditionally didn't prepare for class saying the only reason I came prepared to class was for TBL, because they kind of got really engaged, that competitive streak started twitching in them, they really wanted to get ready for class and they wanted to contribute to their team.
If it was just lectures, I'd probably skip them. But being it so hands-on and, you know, if you miss it, you can't go back and redo it. So I find that really good because it motivates me to, you know, you have to come and if you want to get the best out of it.
I felt like I was wasting a lot of time lecturing to a 2/3 empty lecture hall. It's been a relief to be able to focus just on the interactive seminar activities.
There's a sense of gamification that you can produce in TBL, and having people working in teams, giving the teams a fun name and creating a gentle spirit of competition was also quite useful. Sometimes it can be difficult to get students to volunteer their thoughts, whereas in TBL, that really structured approach meant that students knew what was expected and they came prepared for it, and it was not difficult to get students to speak up.
It pays to also go around so that everybody participates in different roles, and that means they're building different skills for different things, and I think that's really key for upcoming doctors.
One of the biggest strengths of the TBL is that it's modelled after what happens when you leave university. If you're ultimately studying medicine to become a clinician, you're going to go out into the world and have to work with so many different parties and come to an agreement on a best course of action.
I think it's wonderful for students to be stepping into the spotlight because that's what they'll have to do in the workplace. There won't be someone there to tell them, they'll be doing the telling. So for me, that was something that was very attractive and a strong advantage.
When the format of that team-based work is structured as TBL does, I think it's got a bit of everything for both students and those facilitating lectures.